Hello, welcome to the PaynePoints Podcast. We want to tell the stories of people, their businesses, and the journey that they are on. Our purpose is to gather a new perspective on starting, growing, maturing, and maintaining businesses of all sizes. So grab that cup of coffee, sit back, and join us as we start the conversation. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Sarah Harbuck, and with me is Kristin Ellis.
Good morning.
And today our very special guest is Lynn Schroeder of In Blue Handmade. Hello, Lynn.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I'm so glad you were able to take some time out of your schedule to talk with us today.
Yeah, we're really pumped. I think this is my last hour before everything happens for Christmas season here in our studio. So I'm going to enjoy this down.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have caught you before that happened. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and we'll get started there.
Sure. Well, my name is Lynn. I come from Chicago and I own In Blue Handmade, and we are a leather and wax canvas accessory company. And I've had the company since 2008. And it's just been one heck of a journey along the way.
Yeah. Now, you guys are based in North Carolina right now, currently, yes?
Yes, we are. We're in West Asheville.
Yes. And you actually have a physical location as well as an online store.
That's true. Yeah, we have we're in a 6,500 square foot warehouse.
Wow.
Here in Asheville, and recently moved actually from a 3,500 square foot warehouse.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was a heck of an ordeal. And we opened a little showroom here in our workspace that's been working out really well for us as well.
That's awesome. Well, you and I met about 3 years ago, I think it was, at the Wildwood Revival Music Festival, and you had a booth right next to our tattoo shop's booth and had these great leather bags, and we struck up a conversation and a friendship, and I am so glad to have you on. So why don't you tell everybody how you got started in this making leather handbags? What was the tipping point for you to go, I'm gonna make leather bags and accessories?
Well, the company itself sort of started on accident. So in 2008, I was living in Chicago and I was working in music business. And I had been for a few years, and I did not love my job. I was not excited about my job. I was really passionate about music, but it just wasn't my thing. And there were a lot of people who wanted to do what I was doing. And I just kind of came to a crossroads where it's like, I need to do what I love. I'm not motivated. I found myself calling in, like it wasn't hitting it for me. So I packed up my apartment in Chicago and moved to a tiny farmhouse in Southern Illinois.
There's a change.
Culture shock.
Right?
Yeah, this was a town of 400 people, and I had come from the west side of Chicago. So
oh, wow.
I had, up until I moved, my oven was used to hold takeout menus. I think we never even turned on. It was definitely a new world for me, but I had felt disconnected in the city. And I love Chicago and I still miss it, but something was wrong for me and I didn't feel self-sustaining. And so to move to this place that was pretty foreign to me at the time and learn to do things, cook and sew and take care of the well water, do all these things that I failed at massively for the most part. I feel more in control of my own existence and life,
so,
I think.
If you don't mind me asking, why a tiny town of 400 people? Did you have family there, or did you just find a house and go, that's cute, I'll buy it?
With all great stories, this one had to do with a boy.
Understood.
My partner at the time, I was 25, we moved down there and he was intending to return to college. at Southern Illinois University. And I thought to myself that I would as well. I had my bachelor's degree, but I was thinking about pursuing a master's in social work there. And a million things happened in between. I decided to focus on sewing instead of school. He decided to move across the country, and we terminated our partnership, so to speak.
Gotcha.
And then, you pivot like most 25-year-olds do.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I look back at that time fondly now, for sure.
So when you said you focused on sewing, so was that kind of what you're like, oh, I want a leather bag, I'm going to make my own? Or how did that all get started for you?
It took us a couple of years to even get into leather. It took me a few years. I had stopped at this Joann Fabrics on the way down, like in the U-Haul, and bought a sewing machine and met a nice person who was working there who hooked me up with sewing lessons. But it was just sort of part of my plan to be self-sustaining was, I would like to be able to make things or mend things. But I got that sewing machine home and figured it out and called the Singer hotline multiple times, took some lessons, and I loved it. I loved the idea that I could take something and build it, construct an item. And it really connected for me as far as that thing I was missing from work, if you will. Like it just really was the magic process for me. So that's kind of how I got into it.
So it was feeding your soul creatively, and that really sparked something inside of you. Yeah,
absolutely. There was no business plan. It was full of naivete. I had no idea what I was doing. I told you driving down to the farm in the U-Haul that, I'm gonna be a seamstress, or I'm gonna get into accessory design. Like that was nowhere near on the radar at all.
Well, that's actually a pretty common theme with a lot of people we've had.
Is.
It's more like, I didn't have a plan, I just did it. Do you feel like that's kind of left you open-ended to have a little bit more creativity instead of having this rigid plan you followed?
Absolutely. And I think that it's also taken some of the ego out of it for me. This isn't a craft that I've been developing my entire life. Yeah. This wasn't, I didn't go to school for this. I had never been competitive in this. I mean, it was just a passion I found that I loved. And it kind of accidentally turned into a career, sort of out of necessity as well. Just, what am I doing here? Now I need to make money and figure this out. But yeah, I think that's how we ended up where we are is on accident. And honestly, if I had known what it takes to run a business at this level, I don't know if I would have signed up. I'm glad I did. I'm glad I'm here.
Sometimes
I'm not sure that.
Sometimes it's nice when you just you jump in the pot and you turn the water up slowly. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like if you're jumping in when it's boiling, you're just like, oh no, this is way too much.
And I know enough to know I didn't know anything. So I mean, it was just sort of an organic incline, you know.
So did you start selling at these music festivals first, or did you develop an online store whenever you think, things started to kick off? Obviously, you said you had no plan, but once you started actually selling, you were like, okay, well, this is going to turn into a business. How did you go about actually starting that process?
Well, what had happened was this town of 400 people, and it's a really kind of funky little town outside of Carbondale, Illinois, which is a university town. And it's called Makanda. And it has this little boardwalk in town that has these little art shops that connect to a state park, Giant City State Park. And at the time, there was a little store there called the Smelly Hippie. And I had met the owner, the only other person in this town my age. And I met the owner, Robin, and she's liked my little, I had these fabric tote bags and pouches and stuff. And she said, well, why don't we try putting them in my store on consignment? And so that was how gentle that introduction to this was. And I just put some in and they sold right away. And I was like, oh, I'll make some more. And, industrious as always, I was like, oh, okay, people will buy this. And so then, a few months later, I took over a storefront next to hers and we're friends and have been. But I had, rent was $200 a month at this storefront. And so I opened my own little consignment shop. Which did terribly because, as it turns out, there's not a ton of traffic there.
In a town of 400 people. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Again, best laid plans. But
for some reason, my mind went straight to Gilmore Girls when you when you described that little town with the boardwalk and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of that Stars Hollow vibe. I think it gave me plenty of downtime in the store to sort of discover and get into, learn more about Etsy, start learning about global marketplaces and online, and start dipping my toes into that water.
Yeah, because I feel like, when you live in such a small town, having the market is just not there. So you kind of have to, okay, how can I expand this without moving again?
Right.
So I feel like that's a natural progression. Etsy, definitely. What made you, because, I look on your website and being at any festival where you've sold your goods, you deal significantly in leather goods now. What was the transition?
Yeah, where did you go from tote bags to leather?
Yeah.
Hey, so yeah, just learning to sew and everything too. This was very simple. These were very simple items I was constructing, and I was kind of making it work. Like, I was paying rent on my house and my storefront, but that was about it. And I had a conversation with my dad about a year into that, and he said, "Well, I want you to be able to keep doing this, but you can't keep going at this rate. Probably, we need to figure something out." And so he suggested, and he sent me a remnant hide of upholstery leather from eBay. It was just random. And he was like, "Why don't you try leather? I feel like people might want a wallet or something." And by that time, I was sewing on a kind of a heavier, older antique machine, which was great. So it was able to sew through the leather. And that's kind of how that started. Was turning to the leather, understanding that those accessories could be made even quicker, and learning about it. And then I fell in love with it just almost instantly. And most of my focus then shifted to leather.
Yeah. Well, I think your stuff holds up beautifully. I still have the very first purse I ever bought from you, and it is still in perfect condition. It's aged. The leather has aged as it typically does, but there's no rips, there's no tears, there's no fraying, there's no unwoven places. So I can definitely attest that, and that bag took a beating. I used it for 2 years straight and never switched it out. And it still looks like, other than the aged leather, it still looks like it was brand new, so yeah. I can definitely attest to the quality of your product. And you've really, over the years, have really, made things more sophisticated looking and progressed, and you've added in other elements. And now you have a team of people working with you. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, right now we have 8 full-time people at In Blue. We've had as many as 14. That it's an interesting lesson as you go with what you need help with, who you should hire, why you need to hire them. And we've really found a sweet spot with the amount of people we have in our room right now, combined with the amount of equipment that we need to effectively streamline our manufacturing process. But we have, a really, really cool and talented team who are doing really interesting jobs. We have a chief of operations, a director of operations, we have a creative director, and we have a philanthropic director in the room. And all of those people working together on these things that they excel in, it's just kind of magic to watch this go. I think that one of the biggest lessons, and I'm sure this is a question that I'm probably hitting early in the interview, but I think that one of the best things that you can do as a business owner is identify what you're not good at and be okay with that. That you need to find people who are good and who love these aspects. Like, I am not an accountant. I have an accountant. I am very grateful for my accountant. And Marcia, if you're listening, I love you. And I think that, the second you start to understand what you are really good at and build that confidence, then you can identify without fear, like, what you're not great at and what somebody else might really shine at. If you can let them do that and you can create that kind of team, then, you become unstoppable.
That's definitely a common theme, especially what I've noticed in people who have successful businesses that really enjoy their jobs, is that they have, that's a common thread that we've seen, that, find people to fill the jobs that you're not good at so that you can concentrate on what you want to do and what you're good at. And it makes it so much easier, so much more enjoyable, so much less stressful. That's just,
more successful. I feel like the people who have done what you've just described, Mary Lynn, have a more successful business. Maybe they're not doing millions of dollars of sales, but their business runs more successfully, if that makes sense.
Smoothly.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think that's
ultimately.
a perfect lesson. If anybody takes away anything who's listening to this, who is wanting to start a business, that right there is the thing you should listen to in terms of hire the people that you need to fill the gaps in your own knowledge and talent. So that's perfect that you learned that and you utilize that, because some people, it's a hard lesson for them to learn, you know?
Gosh, and I've been through it. I mean, I've definitely been to where I'll just hire my friends, or I make mistakes on, what I think I need versus what I actually need, what I'm capable of, and what I like to do. And for me, like, the magic of it is being able to free myself up to the things. Like, obviously, my entire day is not full of stuff I just want to do, but the majority of it now is stuff that I know I'm good at.
Yeah.
And so I'm allowed to shine in that respect as well. And that just makes everybody happier in here,
Right.
Yeah. Are you still doing some of the sewing? Are you on the production line, or have you graduated away from that?
Yeah, I am on the production line. Ironically enough, I hate sewing now.
Oh, no.
That's what happens when you, yeah.
Well, you've been doing it for a hot minute, so
Right.
I feel like you're probably burnt out. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Very strong word, and I shouldn't use it, but like, my favorite thing in the room is not sewing, and luckily we have a team of sewers that are just like amazing and love to do it. But I've never been that symmetrical. I've never been that precise. Like, even my handwriting is bad. So like, when it comes to, like, it's more of a struggle for me to sew an item perfectly. I love design and I love assembling the items. So we have different stations at work. There's sewing and cutting and assembling. And I typically now kind of live in assembly. So I really enjoy hammering the straps on, punching out the bags, like getting them ready in the last stage of things.
Yeah.
And for me,
seeing it all come
really
together, kind of,
I like being on my feet all day, and this like lets me be standing the entire day. So
definitely.
It feels
Well, I think it too, when you've evolved your job into different phases throughout what you're doing, it kind of keeps you fresh in the moment, like, okay, you did the sewing part and now you're letting other people who are more perfectionist about that take that role over, and now you're doing something else, and eventually I'm sure you'll slide into a different role down the road as time goes on. It seems to be the natural progression for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, that's, I think you're just doing it very organically, which is totally in keeping with your personality.
Yeah, it's true. Yes, this company is definitely my personality, I suppose, because I think, luckily we have people that are more of the voice of the company than I am. But I think that, I definitely think that it should shift, and it feels really good to be able to accomplish anything in the room. And one thing that 12 years has done for us is that if somebody's out sick, I can sit down and sew. I am, there's not many people we have in the room, and this is something that we've worked really hard on in the last few years, so that every single person in the room, because it's a small team and a larger operation, they can do anything. They may not be the number one person in the room for it, but we make sure to train everybody. Like, I don't think there's a single person in this room right now that cannot make a bag start to finish.
That's great.
And that's good security.
That means that everybody can kind of seamlessly fill in gaps when, somebody's on vacation or somebody's out sick, or, a lot of places don't do that. So it kind of hamstrings you. I think that's fantastic that you guys have trained everybody.
It leads to a respect within the team too for each job that's being done, and gives them a good understanding of how that product comes together. So it makes our communication process just 100 times better.
Because when you don't understand somebody else's job, it's real easy to point a finger and go, well, if they had done this right, then I wouldn't have had such a hard time, but when you are able and how, exactly what goes into every step of the process, then you can appreciate, okay, so somebody made a mistake. Yep, been there, done that. I understand. Let's fix it. That's a struggle for a lot of companies. It's a communication, but when everybody knows what the job entails, it's a lot easier, I think, to come to the solution to whatever the problem is.
So we're talking about your personality, and this business really is a reflection of that. And as I know you personally, I can definitely attest and see it in every aspect. And you were mentioning earlier that you had a director of philanthropic operations. Now, for those who don't know, you guys do a lot of community outreach or what's the word? Philanthropic type things where you provide, if you buy an item from your store, you guys provide meals for those in need. So Mary Lynn, why don't you tell us a little bit more about that aspect of your business?
Do.
Sure. Yeah. I think that there've been a lot of crossroads for us as a company, and in particular, I'm sure everybody who's listening can attest to this, but I think we all faced a pretty intense crossroads this year in March and April as far as what is happening.
Yeah.
The pandemic was hitting, the news was scary. I mean, it's still scary, obviously, and particularly for small businesses trying to figure out like what comes next.
Yeah.
What do we do?
Yeah.
What is our role in this? Do we just need to survive? Can we pivot?
Right.
That's like my favorite word. But I think for us, with the amount of anxiety and fear around this and kind of dealing with it, we saw a need. It seemed to be a necessity to us to find a way to work with our community, find a way to work with people in the country to help. We were very lucky at the beginning of the pandemic to already be an established e-commerce company.
Yeah.
And so that hit, but we didn't have to stop.
Yeah.
We did have to figure out how to put people in the room or have people sew from home, but like our sales were still coming.
Yeah.
So much of what we do is online. But along with that, it was like, how do we stay motivated during this time? It's very difficult. And, everybody probably wakes up in the morning every once in a while and they're just scared thinking about it, watching the news. So we sat down outside with X's on the porch, X amount of feet apart, and got like a 6-pack. And we were like, what can we do?
Yeah.
What can we do to help? What can we do to motivate? And we identified for us, one thing we agreed on, one of the biggest pain points in the country right now, that people were hungry, that we were about to face an unprecedented food insecurity crisis within the country and around the world. So we reached out to Feeding America and became enterprise partners with them. And just decided that, this small amount from every sale, which can provide 50 meals, is going to happen. And that's our thing. And that's how we can stay pushing. That's how we can sew from home. That's how we can do this. And we keep a tally at work and watch those meals pile up and up and up. And it feels good, and it helps us through some of that worry and darkness that's occurring too. So, I mean, it's self-serving in some ways, but we've been really lucky to be able to contribute. And we're also just floored by the community response and all over the country and world to people saying, hey, I purchased from you because of this. So, I mean, it's also helped us quite a bit too. We've seen our sales increase from it, and we've been able to get back. And that's just kind of all around a great thing.
I think
that's fantastic.
I think promoting this idea that, because it seems based on what we have inundating us from social media and news, that we don't care about each other, in our communities or across the world and across the country. And that's not really, it's not as true as it might seem. And the fact that you guys were like, okay, we're being affected by this, but not too terribly bad. So how can we help give back to the community? I feel like if everybody had that mindset, just like, let's help,
what little you can do. If
what you
everybody
can do.
did something little, it would all build up into something really huge. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if kind of like that kind of platform within small business, and of course, not everybody is capable of doing that.
Sure.
A lot of small businesses right now, really, I mean, many of my friends who are small business owners are lining up at the food banks that we're supporting.
Yeah.
So it's certainly not an option, but for us it was. And we were really lucky to be able to do that and to be able to communicate that. But we also see that starting a trend, where we have other businesses reach out and say, you know what, I saw you're doing this and we're going to try it too. And I think that's really great.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Pay it forward in a way is kind of that mentality. Like, hey, we're doing okay. We're doing well enough that, we can still support our employees and what have you, and have this little bit that we can do for those that are struggling, because I know that, we own a few businesses, and they were hit kind of hard because they don't have an e-commerce store it's a physical location you have to go to get a tattoo or get, your coffee or what have you. Right. So it was rough, and then making sure that our employees were protected. And thankfully some things, worked out for us in terms of getting those loans and what have you, that it worked out okay for them. But for those who didn't qualify or couldn't do that, it's been, like you said, a struggle, and everybody's having to pivot. So, great job for you guys going, hey, we're going to do what we can to help out in the community. Was that a real hard thing to kind of partner up with them? Was there a lot of paperwork involved, or could you just call somebody up and say, hey, we want to help out, and bada bing, bada boom, there you go?
It's a little bit of both. For any time you want to enter like a corporate partnership, or like what we do with Feeding America, it's called an enterprise partnership, and it's a program for smaller companies to be able to sort of have that Feeding America seal of approval on them without having to meet the goals of like what, thinking of like larger companies that are partnered with Feeding America will be able to donate hundreds of thousands of dollars per year.
Yeah.
With enterprise partnership, you have to meet much lower requirements for that. And so it's kind of a way for them to work with us and elevate us so that eventually we can hit that corporate full partnership. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we just called and reached out and had a couple conversations, and they give you media kits and talk to you, but mainly you have to sort of meet a certain threshold to qualify in the first place. Yeah. But yeah, it's totally possible. And, there are just so many great organizations out there to join up with or work with. And I think that small businesses will find that in the end, that ends up as good advertising as anything as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Totally. How many meals have you guys donated so far? Do you have a tally on that, an up-to-date tally?
Yeah, I don't have this week's tally. I know that we are approaching 1 million meals.
Wow.
And yeah, so that's pretty good. But I don't know exactly. Good. It became a little harder to record as our business has increased pretty drastically over the last few months. And so our accountant has to kind of do that and work that out for us to get the full tallies. And then there's also Feeding America has several matching programs that are really cool. So several other, like maybe, unique entrepreneurs and philanthropists will match maybe an enterprise program for a week. That happens quite often too. So maybe we donate 10,000 meals in a week, and then somebody will match it, which is also really exciting.
Yeah.
So we have final numbers by the end of the year, but I can't necessarily speak to the exact amount right now.
No, that's still impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, close to $1 million, which is a lot of meals.
Yes, a lot of meals, and it's definitely a testament to what we were touching on earlier, that people, you think that we're not supporting each other, or we don't want to we don't care about each other, but the fact that your business has grown, has increased, you've started this ripple effect of other companies seeing what you're doing and wanting that is a testament to the opposite. That the more you give, the more you get.
Yes.
So that's awesome. Really, thank you for being a part of that.
There is an economy that this works for, and I really believe that most small businesses, like if it's feasible for you to do something like this, there's a lot of differences to be made. I mean, there were 35 million people who were food insecure in America before the pandemic, and about 8 million children, and now there are like 17 million, I believe, children and 54 million adults who are food insecure since the pandemic in the United States.
That's terrible.
And so when we're talking about like really desperate need, that's serious. And in every single community, and we can kind of have the power to change that.
And going into the holiday season, it makes things even worse in a way in that regard, because there's a certain level of expectation that most people have, or that maybe before the pandemic, okay, we were here, but now we're down here, and so there's a lot of, I'm sure, parents that are very panicked of how am I going to get through this season and provide for my kids and keep things somewhat stable.
Are we gonna be happy and jolly and, all
Yeah.
the things that this season represents and is, you look forward to all year without the resources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you guys have anything special planned, during this holiday boom that you guys are about to have, getting ready for, quote, quote, Black Friday and the holiday season? Is there extra stuff y'all are doing, or just going to keep pushing with the Feeding America and,
Well, yeah. So we'll keep pushing with Feeding America for sure. We have a couple of initiatives here in town that we're releasing next week, working with different organizations. One of them is called CoThink here, and CoThink is this amazing non-for-profit that gives grants to Indigenous people here and people of color, so BIPOC community. Starting businesses, which is really cool. And so a big part of our initiative will be that. And then we also work with Trama Textiles, which is a group of 400 Indigenous Mayan women in the Guatemalan highlands. It's a fair trade organization. They do weaving. And so we've actually been working with them for a few years. I spent a good amount of time in Guatemala last year working with this group of amazing people.
Very cool.
And so then that's a big part of our focus as well. And we have a couple of different things we consistently give and work with the ACLU. We did an initiative this summer on June 7th where we did an every single cent campaign to the ACLU. And we were able to, in 24 hours, we were able to donate $30,000, which was really amazing.
Wow.
We're just kind of on the pulse of what to us in the room is very important.
Yeah.
We think is going to make the biggest difference in the country to the best of our abilities. And for us, identifying those needs are hunger, racial equity. We feel very strongly about that.
Yeah.
And then also, fair trade artisan work.
Yeah.
For me, one of the most glaring things in Guatemala that I came across were these amazing artists and women who were selling weavings on the street for $1, and that's just nuts.
It's
Yeah.
nothing.
It's just case. You should see how hard it is to create this stuff, and these women are hand dyeing. They've been taught by their grandmothers. But it's anything to get food on the table there, and so one of our biggest focus points with Trama is e-commerce education, and then just helping to buy food, particularly during the pandemic.
Yeah. Well, you said not free trade, fair trade. It's Monday. My words are confused. The fair trade thing. Why don't you, for those who may not understand, explain a little bit of what that means?
So I don't actually have a definition in front of me, but to me, fair trade means that you're paying, in my mind, to paraphrase it, is that I would be paying what you would expect to be paid here in America for a work of art should be paid to an artist elsewhere.
Yes.
In my mind, that's what we call fair trade.
A livable wage or a livable, exchange.
Work and your integrity, your time, your artistic talent, those are things that are desperately important. And that playing field is just so skewed. And for years and years now, we have sort of a group of, and I hate to generalize, but white American dudes going down to Central America and buying stuff on the cheap and then reselling it for a ton of money here. And that's just messed up to me.
Yeah, I mean,
cool.
we live in a world where, that's everything is, I can get it cheaper here, or I can do this. And you think, well, but how are they acquiring that, And if you're not, Amazon has billions of dollars. They don't need any more of our money. If you can support a local business or a small business that is making a hand artisan craft that is one of a kind,
then you're supporting somebody's family.
You're supporting someone's livelihood, not just some corporate entity. And this is why I push small businesses so much, is because we own some small businesses, and I know how much it makes the difference in our lives when people choose us over some, big conglomerate. So, and everybody getting paid a fair amount for the work that they do, I think is a very important part of that. So, yeah.
Right. Their lives matter. These people, particularly I am attached to these weavers in Guatemala, having spent time with them, but you know, why should it be hard for them to buy groceries? Like if you're gonna have their weaving in your bag or on your wall or on your table, it should definitely impact them in a positive way. It shouldn't be just enough to barely scrape by and then worrying about selling another one tomorrow for $1. It should be sustainable.
Yeah.
You know, and that's for me like a big part of that, where I see my skill set as useful when it comes to artisans, and particularly in Central America, because I feel really drawn to that area of the world, but is that e-commerce education is something that's lacking. And so this is something that I really like to spend my time on and energy as far as that's concerned, because, you know, to be able to be in charge and empowered of your own selling, that's huge.
Yeah.
So, you know, to maybe the education hasn't been there, it's not widespread or known necessarily in Guatemala, but it's like definitely teachable. Like, hey, here's this website, here's what you do, here's a list, and here's how we ship it. And here's how it goes in falls in your court. You know, and I really think that arms like financial independence.
Absolutely.
You know?
Is that something that you guys are going to maybe try to work on for the future, is helping out with some of these, you know, crafters that you've worked with in other countries be able to sell their goods online like that?
Sure. I mean, I would like them to, I mean, I would like to teach more. The pandemic's definitely put a stop to it. I do a lot on, or like video Zoom, technically, you know, kind of like working that out. But that's something that's on the radar for me in the next 5 years, is being able to spend, you know, a year down there and like really teaching that, really getting into it, understanding what's getting in the way, and identifying grants that can fill that, so that we can create sustainable incomes, you know.
And, you know, let everyone have access to these beautiful techniques that have been handed down from generation to generation that you wouldn't necessarily normally see unless you actually went to visit, you know, their little village or community. So, I think it also just sort of like educates everyone too in terms of like, you know, how artistic and creative people can be from all over the world. And if you don't travel, or if you haven't had the opportunity to, and of course right now that's not a reality for a lot of people, you know, it brings a little bit of culture to your life that you might not have otherwise had, you know, which I feel like is something we all kind of need a little bit. So
and it's just fully understanding other cultures. I mean, I think that this is, again, like all of these things come together to make this world better, to really understand our neighbors, to really understand their culture, to celebrate it rather than just sort of appropriate it, like that we can learn from one another. I think that's really important. I think the goal for us this year in general is like, how can we leave the world better than when we started this? Like, what can we do? You know, and that's been our driving force. And we've been very lucky that that's been, you know, financially successful for us. But really, moreover, I'm just sleeping better at night.
Well, when you know, you're doing something to help others, you know, it makes you feel a little good, but it also helps those in need as well. So I think that's also great. You know, because this has been a challenging year for so many, what has been an obstacle you guys have overcome, or, you know, have you had any really, because your business is established, you know, for 12 years and had a really good e-commerce, you know, establishment? Did you guys really see anything? Did you have to market differently? You know, was there any kind of wisdom you can impart to those who might be struggling right now?
I mean, well, it was awful. I mean, I don't believe anybody who says that this wasn't really difficult unless they were like selling toilet paper on Amazon. I feel like it was just really hard. You know, for us, we lucked out because it wasn't that we lost sales, but we did have to send every single person in the room home, you know, when our town locked down, and that was it. And we should have. It was good that we did lock down, but navigating that, trying to figure that out. I worked from, you know, 4 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day for 2 months. With no time off, no sleep. I was a little insane. Like, I mean, not insane. I didn't make perfect bags for some of that. I will say that. Like, I mean, I made all kinds of errors. And also, I was just freaking out. I mean, it was weird because I'm used to having my team, and all of a sudden they they couldn't be there. So a lot of them were working from home and doing everything they could. But I was just in this big warehouse alone, talking to the dog, like, trying to get all the orders out.
It's a lonely world, I think, whenever you're used to it being one particular way, and then this thing comes along that just changes the way everybody has to do business. And I think the ones who were able to jump on that and do what they could to maximize, their time or what their employees could do from home, fared a little better than those who couldn't. And then obviously some businesses just that wasn't feasible for them. But it sounds like you guys, as hard as it was and as scary as it was, it's like, okay, well, it's just one thing that's taught me something else, the school of hard knocks versus there's nothing you can take in college that will ever prepare you for a global pandemic that shuts the world down. Like, I don't care what anybody says. There's no preparing for this. You can kind of guess or imagine. But like, let's be real. I don't think any of us really thought that this would be a thing that we'd have to deal with in our lifetimes. And now we're like, okay, I guess we could give a masterclass on it at this point.
Right. No kidding. Yeah. I mean, this changed everything forever. I do think that, for us, like I said, I mean, I really, like, of course it was hard. Did we have a harder time than everybody else? Definitely not. I mean, if you own a brick and mortar store during this time, this has been the most difficult time of your life, not just personally, mentally, but on your business. I mean, and I think that more and more it's identifying that we've entered this sort of, I forget how they phrase it, like fourth industrial revolution or whatever, this technological revolution where there is a sink or swim as far as getting things online and getting things listed up, and if I had to, I mean, it's unfortunate, and I'm grieving like the loss of so many small businesses and so many cool small stores. I'd love to go to a store and shop, and there are a lot that aren't going to make it. But the people that do are going to have made it because they were able to figure out how to have a lifestyle company and community online.
Yeah.
And
you guys
that's going to be
y'all have really utilized social media, to some extent with, your display of products and interaction with the public and getting people interested in the Feeding America, aspect of your business. So I feel like, when people can utilize the tools that are out there, we can all hate social media to some extent, and I do. Also using it to your advantage to, use it as a platform to promote the things you're interested in or promote your business or, the causes that are important to you. If we can use it as a force for good, then I say, let's keep doing that. And I think you guys have definitely shown that to be true. If you have anything to add to that, or you have a different perspective, I'd be interested to hear.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think social media, I agree with you. I really believe all things in moderation. You have to have a point where you're willing to disconnect. This is a lesson I've learned over time about even customers sending Instagram messages or Facebook messages or whatever. Like, I can't be available at 3 a.m. for that.
Sure.
There are things that you have to be able to set these boundaries with yourself on how much time are you going to spend on it. But it is a tool. It's certainly a tool, and particularly right now, it's a tool to increase business and engage people. And really, I mean, I think if anything, right now we're presented with an opportunity to learn how to do things.
Yeah.
A lot of people are kind of scrambling, figuring out what to do. Well, now is a great time to read an article on social media advertising algorithms.
Yeah.
Now is a great time to take those steps. Like, you can't go out right now. You're not going to go out on Saturday night. So my new party is like, who should I be targeting on ads?
Right.
But those things will make a phenomenal difference. We retargeted our social media advertising and algorithms at the beginning of March. And I want to say we had around 6,000 or 7,000 Instagram followers then. And now we have close to 30,000 Instagram followers.
Wow. Yeah, that's a huge uptick.
Possible. Yeah. It's just because, I don't know. I mean, it was really harsh that I couldn't go see concerts anymore, but I just filled that time with trying to learn.
Yeah.
I
think that's the difference too. A lot of people get down in the dumps and they just, it kind of almost give up and say, well, use this time that you would have been doing, X, Y, or Z to
better yourself.
Yeah. And
learn
get out of the hole.
Learn a new language, helps learn a new skill, do something, that you wouldn't normally do.
Right, absolutely. Like if you can beef up that knowledge, if you can kind of understand and take that time to really dig in and then combine that with your own creative endeavor, then you're probably going to be off to a really good pivot.
Yeah, yeah, very. So I have a totally off, probably totally off topic. Sorry, I had to step out for a second because my 4-month-old was not happy. But I'm just curious, where did the name In Blue come from?
In Blue came from Bob Dylan, Tangled Up in Blue.
Ah, gotcha.
Song lyrics.
Yeah, it was very like waxing poetic for me. I was 25 and
You're a bit of a hippie, so
That's
it's
all
okay.
right. All the best people are.
yeah, it definitely was just listening to that. I had just moved. I was really deciding to start my company, and I was like driving in the country, listening to Tangled Up in Blue, and I was like, In Blue. Yeah, and it's probably the least relevant name. I think it's really funny.
I mean, sometimes those quirky names are the ones that like stick in your brain the most.
Hey, it's taking you kept you in business for 12 years, so, there's nothing wrong with it.
Still love Bob, so.
Yep.
What do you think in these 12 years, and especially this year, probably more this year than any other year, but what has this business, running this business and just all the things you've been involved in, what has it taught you about yourself that you've like, oh, wow, like I didn't even know that going into this journey?
It's funny because 12 years, I'm 37 now, and I was 25 when I started this. And, while I wouldn't have probably said it when I was 25, I look back and I was like, my God, I was a child.
Yes.
Just thinking about my process and my reactions and my ability and patience. Those are, one would hope you grow up during that 12 years.
Sure. Yeah, that's definitely a 10. People think, 10 years isn't that much, 12 years, but it really
it's a lifetime.
From 25 to 37. That's a lot of.
Yeah, that's a lot of upheaval. That's a lot of relationships started, stopped. That's a lot of everything.
It's a lot of time.
And the company's transitioned with it. You can see the difference. It is essentially a portfolio of my growth, just in the way we handle anything.
Yeah.
I'm way less reactionary than I was then. I feel like I have less to prove, which is good. And I'm motivated by different things. I'm a much calmer individual, which is good. But I also think all that fire that I had when I was that age was so integral to scrapping. Anybody else would have quit. My profit margin was non-existent. It was so poor. I had no idea what I was doing, but I don't, I was so stubborn.
Yeah.
And I think that really kept me going for a while when probably anybody else would have told me to quit.
Well, that can take you a long way in small business.
Tenacity.
It's not everybody is an overnight success. A lot of times you've got to scrimp and scrape and struggle and then eventually you'll figure it out. You got to pivot a little bit along the way too.
They say it takes 3 to 5 years to really get yourself established. And
totally.
I have definitely been a part of businesses where that is absolutely true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think for us, it took 10 years.
Yeah.
I think that it has given me a certain amount of confidence in myself and just experience. I don't have the most experience, but I am older. I do know what I'm doing. I'm not afraid day to day about the company.
Yeah.
And I have this ability to kind of roll with things without, just freaking out.
Yeah.
And I think that just because you start to have seen things more than once, you've seen drops in sales, increases in sales. You've seen enough fourth quarters to know what's coming and to kind of have an idea of how to predict. But also you just get comfortable with the fact that you don't always know what's coming next.
Yeah.
And that's, that's not easy to do in your first few years. I don't think.
No.
Right.
I know I've said it before, but it's that saying that experience or making good decisions. The ability to make good decisions comes from experience. Experience comes from making bad decisions.
Oh, yeah. And I probably multiple times.
Yes.
That's okay. I like to own that. I like to know that because it makes it even sweeter when we hit new milestones.
Yeah, as long as you learn from it and can move on, and grow from it,
Yeah.
then you're good. It's just part of
Everything is a work in progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a journey. It's not a destination. If you think
Yeah.
you're going to arrive somewhere, then you're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So, obviously, everybody wants to hit certain plateaus or certain levels. But if you were to like be able to talk to your 25-year-old self or some other young entrepreneur, what advice would you give them that you wish someone had given you at that time?
Good question. I think that I would say patience and understanding that your idea was your idea. You need to be ready to pivot with whatever plan you had. That's a huge part of your plan, is the ability to evolve and to be open to it, but not to just follow the formula, that whatever generic formula you see out there for having a successful business. And particularly in e-commerce, I really believe that, people ask me often, like, how do you compete with Amazon? And my answer to that is we don't compete with Amazon. We work alongside Amazon.
Yeah.
We take what Amazon's done right, we try to implement it, but we offer somebody something different. We're offering a community. We're offering a place where people feel good about their purchase. They feel like they know us.
Mm-hmm.
So much hinges around our customer service and our interactions with people.
Yeah.
And that's the advice I would give to anybody who wants a small to mid-sized business to be successful, is that it has to sort of be done your way. You can't like a formula that you find online or copying somebody else's company or trying to make all the exact same moves. It's never going to happen exactly like that.
Yeah.
You need to develop your path, trust your path, trust your integrity, and trust your instinct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're going to have to do it a little bit your way. A lot of those outlines are good places to start, but you're going to have to, if you're going to be running this business and you want to be successful and you want to be happy in what you're doing and how you're running your business.
It's just extremely easy, particularly this day and age, and particularly for young women, I feel like to have a sort of like looking at things online and comparing themselves to other people. This is a constant thing that we battle, in all over the world. And it's developing that kind of confidence to know that your journey doesn't have to look just like everybody else's to be a huge success. And it's way more likely to succeed if it's got you in it.
Right.
Yeah. And you put your stamp, your personality, your ethics and brand on it. It makes it humanized a little bit more than just, there's this company that I can order things from. I feel like I enjoy people, especially if I follow them on Instagram, and of course I know you personally, where I feel like, I'm dealing with a real person, a real human being here, not just some entity that, it doesn't have any humanity. So to me, that is what draws me to smaller businesses. With that in mind, it's not a gigantic conglomerate. It's a person trying to make a living and put out a great product and have you join that community with them. So, and you guys definitely do create a lifestyle type community atmosphere within your company. So it's great. What does the future hold for you guys? As we're all kind of in this uncertain time, but what do you have that you had planned on doing but was having to put on hold, and that you hope for the future? Anything down the pipeline, any big projects or collaborations?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot. Like I spent the very first part of this year in Costa Rica, kind of doing some deep meditation, intense courses and things like that, and had sort of made quite a few plans for the future, which immediately were completely upended by the
Yep.
But boy, was that lovely when I was there. I really believe that consulting is in my future. In Blue is doing great, and we're not going anywhere. My team is almost better at this than I am now. I believe that they're getting to a point where they don't need me all the time, to their credit, because hire people that are smarter than you. That's the goal, and I've done that, so I'm really proud of that. So I think that's going to be able to free me up anyway a little bit more, as it's safer to travel, to sort of dig deeper into those e-commerce education initiatives that we chatted about earlier. I just feel really strongly about that kind of consulting and being able to sort of incorporate that into our business plan and structure. I've been doing consulting for years now for FedEx's small business department and some with Etsy. But I'd like to take that to the stuff that I feel really passionately about and take that skill set and kind of evolve on that. But as far as In Blue goes, I mean, right now we're just kind of rocking and rolling, and we're really excited about new product in January. I'm already thinking, I'm always thinking about the next line, but that's something that we're kind of talking about as we're hammering out, all of these bags. But right now in the immediate future, in 6 weeks, we'll do more than half of our business for the year.
Wow.
In the next 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So that has been an extreme challenge to navigate supply chain wise during the pandemic, but I think we've got it.
Yeah.
And so we're all really excited and ready and ramped up and kind of just super organizing the studio and the warehouse and getting ready for it, and all hands on deck here, focused down on just getting these bags out.
Well, it sounds like you guys have a lot coming down the pipeline, and I'm very excited for you guys. Why don't you tell everybody as we wrap up here where they can find you guys online and order your products and see all the things you guys have to offer?
Yeah, well, you can follow us on social media anywhere at In Blue Handmade. And our website is inbluehandmade.com. And on Etsy, we are inblue.etsy.com. Although it's really easy, you can just type in Blue Handmade and I'm sure we'll pop up on Etsy as well. So, and we have a really great link tree situation on our Insta that you can go to, and you can kind of get to any of those things. And I just want to last plea to remind people that feedingamerica.org, you can buy a bag from us and we'll donate 50 meals, and we're really pumped to do that. But also, if you just have a little bit extra in your check and you're food secure and you're feeling good about it and you can spare that, going to feedingamerica.org and donating really will change a family's life this month.
Well, that's
so, easy to do. You'll feel really good about it, and that can be your kind of give back this year.
It's a very large need right now.
Yeah.
And
totally.
For a lot of people. So,
yeah. Well, Mary Lynn, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us. It was a pleasure.
It was.
And I know you're very busy and you got to get back to work. So we thank you for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to catch up.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, we hope you enjoyed this story. If you have a story to tell us, please find us on our website at PaynePoints.com or any of our social media at PaynePoints. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review. If you're listening on YouTube, please like and comment. And if you listen to us on Spotify, be sure to follow us so you never miss another podcast. Guys, we hope you have a great week. And thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.